The small pod fell through the sky like a rock. Fire covered its outside as it cut through the air. Inside, Daniel Carter held on tight to his seat. His body shook hard as the pod dropped faster and faster. Red lights flashed everywhere. Loud sounds filled his ears. Metal bent and twisted around him. He knew this was bad. Daniel was a doctor, not a pilot. He worked on a medical ship called the Nightingale. His job was to help sick and hurt people. He had learned some basic things about escape pods during training. But nothing prepared him for this moment. Enemy ships had attacked his medical ship without warning. He barely had time to jump into a pod before the Nightingale exploded. The pod hit the ground hard. Very hard. Daniel's head jerked forward. He saw bright lights behind his eyes. Then everything went black. He did not know how long he was out. When he woke up, everything was quiet. No more alarms. No more sounds of breaking metal. Just wind blowing through holes in the pod. Daniel pushed the button to release his seat straps. His left arm hurt bad, maybe broken. His head felt heavy and painful, but he was alive. He stood up slowly and walked out of the damaged pod. Bright sunlight hit his eyes. He raised his good hand to block the light. The world around him was red and brown. Sand stretched far in every direction. Big rocks stood up from the ground like broken teeth. Mountains rose in the distance under a strange sky. The pod had dug a deep line through the sand before stopping against some large rocks. Smoke came from the back of the pod. Daniel's training kicked in. Check yourself first. That was the rule. He looked at his body carefully. His head was probably hurt on the inside. His arm was definitely broken. He had cuts and bruises all over. He needed water soon, but he would live. He reached into the pod and grabbed his medical bag. It was one of the few things that still looked okay. Then he heard something that made his blood turn cold. A low, deep sound came from behind the rocks. It sounded like an animal. A big animal. Daniel froze. His hand went to the small cutting tool on his belt. It was meant for cutting through metal, not fighting, but it was all he had. Something moved out from behind the rocks. Daniel had never seen anything like it. The creature walked on 4 legs. Its body was covered in black and red plates that shined in the sun. These plates looked like armor. The creature had no eyes that Daniel could see. Its head was long and had small holes all over it. But what scared Daniel most was the mouth. Even with the mouth closed, he could see huge teeth sticking out. Daniel knew what this was. HFYs. He had heard stories about them. They came from a world where everything was dangerous. People used them as weapons in wars. They were fast. They were strong. They could kill easily. And this one was hurt. One of its back legs dragged on the ground. Dark blood left a trail in the sand behind it. The creature breathed hard like it could not get enough air. Some of its armor plates were broken or missing. Daniel could see thick muscles under the damaged armor. The creature's head turned toward him. The small holes on its head opened wider. It made another low sound. Daniel should have run away. Every part of his brain told him to run. But he stood still. His training as a doctor fought with his fear. The creature was dying. That was clear. The broken leg was just one problem. The way it moved and breathed showed more damage inside. Without help, it would die in a few hours. The HFY took one step toward Daniel, then another. Each step looked painful. It lowered its head. Daniel thought it was going to attack, but it just looked at him with those strange holes on its head. Its body was tight with pain, but it did not attack. They were both stuck on this planet. Both hurt, both survivors of the same battle. Daniel made a choice. He slowly raised his hands to show they were empty. Then he took a careful step forward. The HFY made that low sound again, but it did not move. Daniel spoke softly. His voice shook a little, but he tried to sound calm. Easy now. I will not hurt you. I am a doctor. Do you understand me? He did not know if the creature could understand human words. Most HFYs did not talk. They used smells and body movements to communicate. But something in Daniel's voice must have meant something to the creature. The low sound stopped. The HFY tilted its head. The holes on its head focused on Daniel. Daniel knelt down slowly and opened his medical bag. He pulled out a small scanner. He kept his movements slow and clear. The HFY watched but did not react. Daniel pointed the scanner at the creature and turned it on. The numbers he saw made him feel sick. Broken ribs, damaged lung, bad bleeding from the leg. It was amazing the creature was still standing. You are in very bad shape. If I do not help you, you will die. But you have to let me come close. Can you do that? The Vrex looked at him for a long time. Then slowly it lowered itself to the ground. Its body shook as it lay down. It put its head on the sand and closed its mouth. The big teeth disappeared behind its lips. The message was clear. It was giving permission. Daniel walked closer carefully. His medical bag felt heavy in his hands. As he knelt next to the huge creature, he could smell its blood. It had a sharp metal smell mixed with something that reminded him of spice. The Vrex breathed hard. Each breath made a rattling sound in its damaged chest. Daniel reached out his hand. He stopped. Then he gently touched the creature's armored shoulder. The plates were warm, almost hot. The Vrex pulled back a little but did not move away. Okay, let me help you now. He had just become partners with one of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Daniel knew his life would never be the same. He opened his medical bag and got to work. The sun climbed higher in the strange sky. Two survivors, human and alien, began an unlikely friendship on a world that was not home to either of them. The two suns moved higher in the red sky. Daniel worked on the injured Vrex for hours. His hands moved fast even though his mind was full of worried thoughts. He used special foam to stop the bleeding from the worst cuts. The military made this foam to seal wounds quickly. The damaged leg was harder to fix. This is going to hurt. Daniel warned the creature even though he was not sure it understood. He gave the Vrex medicine to make the leg feel less pain. Then he started to set the broken bone back in place. The Vrex's whole body went stiff. Its muscles got tight under the armor. But it made no sound. Not even a small noise. Just that same hard breathing. Daniel found himself talking while he worked. This was something he always did when treating scared patients on the Nightingale. I am Daniel, by the way. Daniel Carter. I do not know if you have a name. Maybe your kind do not use names like we do. He wrapped the leg tight with special bandages. He checked it twice to make sure the bone was straight. I used to work on a hospital ship. I fixed broken bones and treated infections. Normal stuff. Nothing like this. The Vrex kept those strange holes on its head pointed at Daniel as he worked. It felt odd to be watched by something with no eyes. But there was something about the way it paid attention. Daniel moved to fix the problems inside the creature's body. His scanner showed the damaged lung was the biggest danger. I need to fix that lung. He reached for a medical needle filled with tiny robots. These little machines will work from inside your body. It will feel strange, but you have to trust me. He pressed the needle into a gap between the creature's armor plates. The medicine went into the Vrex's body. The creature's whole body shook hard, but again no sound came out. Daniel watched his scanner. The tiny robot spread through the creature's blood and started fixing the damage. Hours went by. The temperature dropped as one sun went down below the edge of the world. Long shadows covered the desert. Daniel had used almost everything in his medical bag. The Vrex was stable now, but it needed time to heal. Daniel thought about where the creature came from. Was it on one of the enemy ships? Was it a prisoner like him? Or was it part of the attack? When darkness came, the temperature fell fast. Daniel had not expected the desert to get so cold at night. His uniform was made for ships with climate control, not for living outside. He shivered and hugged himself as the wind picked up. That was when the Vrex moved. Daniel got tense and his hand went to his cutting tool. But the creature just shifted its big body. It made a space between itself and the rocks. Heat came off its armored body like a fire. The Vrex turned its head toward Daniel. Then it looked at the warm space it had created. An invitation. Daniel stared at the creature. His brain told him this was crazy. This was a predator, a killer, something that could tear him apart in seconds. But his body was already moving toward the warmth. The night was getting colder and colder. He walked closer slowly. Then he carefully sat down against the Vrex's side. The heat felt wonderful right away. It went through his uniform and pushed away the cold. The creature's breathing had gotten better. It was not struggling anymore. Daniel could feel the steady up and down movement of its big chest. Thank you. He whispered the words quietly. He thought he would stay awake all night. How could he sleep next to something so dangerous? But he was so tired. Within minutes he fell into a deep sleep. It was the best sleep he had in months. Daniel woke when the second sun came up over the horizon. For a moment he did not know where he was. Why was his bed so hard? Why did the air smell like spice? Then he remembered everything. He was still pressed against the Vrex's side. The creature was already awake. The holes on its head scanned the desert around them. When Daniel moved, the Vrex turned its head toward him. Something was different about how it looked at him now. Less careful. More curious, Daniel sat up. His body hurt from sleeping on sand and rock. His arm was still broken and painful. He checked his supplies. Water was going to be a problem. His emergency food would last maybe 3 days. After that, things would get very hard. The Vrex watched him count his supplies. When Daniel pulled out a water bag and took a small drink, the creature's head tilted in a way that looked curious. I know. We need to find water and food, and we need to figure out if there is any way to leave this planet. The Vrex made a sound then, not the low warning sound from before. This was different. A series of clicks and deep rumbles that Daniel felt in his chest more than heard. The creature stood up. It put weight on the injured leg but could walk on it. The tiny robot treatment had worked faster than Daniel expected. The creature walked away from the rocks. Then it stopped and looked back at Daniel. The message was clear. Follow me. Daniel grabbed his medical bag and followed. The Vrex led him away from the crash site. It moved well despite its injuries. They walked for maybe an hour. The desert changed from mostly sand to more rocks. Daniel was about to suggest they rest when the Vrex stopped at the edge of a small canyon. Below them, hidden from the sky, was a small area with water and plants. Green plants grew around a pool of clear water. Daniel felt tears come to his eyes. The Vrex had just saved his life. They went down into the canyon together. Daniel filled his water bags while the Vrex drank deeply from the pool. As he watched the creature, Daniel realized something important had happened. This was not just about surviving together. The Vrex had chosen to help him just like he had chosen to help it. They were not predator and prey anymore. Not alien and human. They were something else, partners, friends maybe. Daniel was not sure what to call this kind of connection. He reached out slowly and put his hand on the Vrex's armored shoulder again. The creature turned its head. Those strange holes focused on him. Daniel smiled. We are going to be okay. He said it and somehow believed it was true. The two of them stayed by the water as the suns moved across the sky. Daniel cleaned his own wounds and changed his bandages. The Vrex watched and seemed to understand what he was doing. They had found water. They had found shelter. And they had found each other. For now, that was enough. Days passed in the harsh world of the desert planet. Daniel made a routine around the waterhole. He used broken pieces from his escape pod to build a basic shelter. The Vrex stayed nearby. It often left during the day but always came back when night fell. Each night they shared warmth against the cold. Each morning Daniel checked how the creature was healing. The leg was getting better quickly. Vrex bodies healed much faster than human bodies. The damaged lung had sealed completely. Even the cracked armor plates were growing back. New dark material filled in the old cracks. Communication stayed basic but got better each day. The Vrex's clicks and rumbles meant different things. Daniel was slowly learning to understand them. Fast high clicks meant alert or warning. Low rolling rumbles meant calm or happy. And there was one special sound, almost like a purr mixed with a growl, that the creature made when Daniel came near. It meant recognition. It meant greeting. Daniel started calling the Vrex Nova. He chose the name because of how its black and red plates caught the double sunlight. He had no idea if the creature had its own name, but Nova seemed right. And sometimes when he said the name, the Vrex's sensor holes would focus on him in a way that felt like understanding. Food was becoming a problem. Daniel's emergency food was almost gone. The plants around the waterhole might be poisonous. He tried to study them with his scanner, but could not be sure what was safe. He watched Nova hunt small lizard creatures that lived in the rocks. The Vrex tore into them efficiently, but Daniel's stomach turned at the thought of eating raw alien meat. On the 8th day, everything changed. Daniel was filling water bags when Nova suddenly went very still. The creature raised its head. The sensor holes opened wide. Nova made a sound Daniel had never heard before. Sharp, fast clicks that made his teeth hurt. Warning, danger. Nova moved between Daniel and the canyon entrance. Its body went low. Every muscle got tight and ready. Daniel grabbed his cutting tool and looked where the Vrex was looking. At first he saw nothing. Then he noticed movement. Shapes coming down into the canyon from many places. Enemy raiders. 4 of them. They moved like trained soldiers with their weapons up. They scanned the area carefully. They had found the waterhole. Or more likely, They had tracked Daniel's crash and followed his trail. The raiders were reptile creatures, smaller than humans but faster and more nimble. Their armor was light but good. These were not random pirates. They were professional fighters, probably hired to hunt survivors from the Nightingale. The lead raider saw Daniel and Nova. Its mouth parts clicked in what might have been surprise or amusement. It raised a plasma rifle. Nova moved. Daniel had seen the Vrex move before, but never like this. Never with full killing intent. One moment Nova was beside him. The next moment the creature was a blur of black and red. It covered the distance to the lead raider in seconds. The raider barely had time to fire. The plasma shot went wide as Nova slammed into him with huge force. The raider's scream stopped fast as Nova's jaws closed around his body. Armor crushed like paper. The other 3 raiders started firing, but Nova was already moving. It used the canyon's rocks for cover. A second raider went down. He was dragged behind a boulder before he could react. Daniel pressed himself against the canyon wall. His cutting tool was raised but forgotten. He was not a fighter. He was a doctor, but he could not just stand there while Nova fought alone. The Vrex had protected him. Now it was his turn. One of the raiders saw Daniel and moved toward him with weapon raised. Daniel dove behind cover as plasma fire burned the air where he had been standing. His heart beat hard in his chest. The raider came closer, confident, systematic, then Nova was there. The creature came from the shadows like something from a nightmare. The raider tried to turn and bring his weapon around, but he was far too slow. Nova struck with perfect precision. Its claws found the weak points in the armor with efficiency that spoke of countless battles. The last raider saw his friends fall. He made a smart choice. He ran. Nova could have chased him, but instead the Vrex returned to Daniel's side. It put itself between Daniel and the running raider. The message was clear. Daniel's safety came first. The canyon became quiet except for Daniel's heavy breathing and Nova's low growl. The Vrex turned to face him. Daniel saw fresh wounds on the creature's side where plasma fire had burned through armor. Without thinking, he rushed forward. His medical bag was already in his hands. Hold still. Let me see. His voice shook. Nova stood still as Daniel looked at the wounds. They were not deep. Mostly surface burns, but they needed treatment. He worked quickly. He put burn gel and fresh foam on the wounds. The Vrex made that purring growl sound. The one Daniel had come to know meant trust. As he worked, Daniel understood something important. Nova had not fought the raiders just to defend territory or survive. The Vrex had fought to protect him. A human, an alien, someone who should have meant nothing to a creature made for war. But Daniel did mean something. He mattered to Nova, and Nova mattered to him. Thank you. Daniel whispered with his hand resting on the Vrex's shoulder. Thank you for protecting me. Nova's sensor holes focused on him. The creature lowered its huge head until it was level with Daniel's chest. Then gently, almost carefully, Nova pressed forward and made contact. It was a deliberate action, one that spoke of connection, of bond, of something deeper than words. Daniel wrapped his arms around the Vrex's armored head. He ignored the sharp edges. He ignored the blood and the burnt smell. They stood together in the canyon, predator and healer, alien and human. The 2 suns made long shadows across the red desert. The raider who escaped would report back. More would come, but right now, in this moment, Daniel felt something he had not felt since his ship was destroyed. He felt safe. He was not alone. Daniel looked at Nova and saw not a monster or a weapon. He saw a friend, someone who had chosen to stand by him when it could have easily walked away or killed him. That choice meant everything. It changed everything. And as they prepared for what was coming next, Daniel knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened, they would face it together. The raiders' escape changed everything. Daniel knew they had limited time before more enemies returned with bigger numbers. He spent the next day taking what he could from the dead bodies. It was a terrible task that made him feel sick. But he needed their supplies. The raiders had weapons, food, and most important, a working communication device. Nova watched as Daniel worked on the device. He tried to make its signal reach farther. The Vrex had started staying closer since the attack. It rarely left Daniel's side for more than a few minutes. When Daniel checked the creature's wounds again, he was surprised. They were already healing. The burn marks were fading to lighter patches on the dark armor. Your body must be part metal or something, Daniel said while running his scanner over Nova's side. This healing speed is not normal. Nova made that purring growl sound. Daniel smiled despite their situation. He had learned to recognize patterns in the creature's sounds. This particular sound came when Daniel talked to Nova while working. It seemed to mean the Vrex was content, or maybe just that it knew Daniel was speaking. The communication device finally turned on after hours of work. Daniel connected it to his escape pod's remaining power cells. He started sending a distress signal on all human ship channels. He included his name and job as a medic from the Nightingale. He added his location coordinates. Then he waited. Days went by with no answer. Daniel tried not to think about what that might mean. Maybe the enemy had blocked all signals in this area. Maybe no human ships were close enough to hear. Maybe everyone from the Nightingale was dead and no one was looking for survivors. Nova seemed to sense Daniel's growing sadness. The Vrex stayed close. It often rested its head against Daniel's side as they sat together in the evenings. Sometimes Daniel would talk about Earth, about his training to become a doctor, about patients he had helped. He had no idea if Nova understood any of it. But the creature listened. Its sensor hole stayed focused on him. "I miss coffee," Daniel said one evening while looking up at the alien stars. "Real Earth coffee, not the fake stuff from the ship. My grandmother used to make it in an old pot. The whole house would smell like it." He looked at Nova. "You probably have no idea what I'm talking about." Nova's response was a series of soft clicks, almost musical. Daniel had started to think of it as the Vrex's way of having a conversation. Not words exactly, but communication. On the 15th day, the communication device made noise. Daniel almost knocked it over, rushing to answer. A voice came through the static. Distorted but clearly human. "This is Ship Wellington responding to distress call. Please confirm your name and condition." Daniel's hand shook as he grabbed the speaker. "This is Daniel Carter, medic from the Nightingale. I am alive. I am at the sent coordinates on this planet. Please, I need rescue." There was a pause. Then the voice came back clearer. "Carter, this is Captain Lisa Monroe of the Wellington. We have your location. Warning, enemy forces are still active here. We are coming, but rescue will be dangerous. Can you stay in position for 36 hours? "Yes," Daniel replied. "I can hold out." "Please hurry, understood. Wellington out." Daniel put down the speaker. Relief flooded through him. They were coming. He was going to survive. He turned to Nova with a smile on his face. "Did you hear that? They are coming for us. We are getting off this planet." But as soon as the words left his mouth, Daniel's smile disappeared. Us. He had said us. But would the Wellington take Nova? Could they? The Vrex was classified as a hostile alien by human military rules. The crew would see a dangerous predator, not the companion who had kept Daniel alive. Nova seemed to sense the change in Daniel's mood. The creature moved closer. Its sensor holes focused on him with what felt like concern. Daniel put his hand on Nova's armored head. He felt the familiar warmth. "I am not leaving you," he said firmly. "I do not care what the rules say. You saved my life. You are coming with me." Nova made a low, questioning rumble. Daniel wished he could explain properly. He wished he could make the Vrex understand that rescue might bring new problems. Instead, he just kept his hand steady. He tried to say through touch what he could not say with words. That night, Daniel barely slept. He kept thinking about the rescue, about how the ship's crew would react to Nova, about what might happen if they tried to separate them. The Vrex was officially a weapon species. There were protocols and procedures and regulations, but Nova was not a weapon. Nova was a person, maybe not human, maybe not able to speak like humans, but a person nonetheless. Smart, kind, able to choose. As the first sun rose and painted the canyon gold and copper, Daniel made his decision. He would not let them take Nova, not to a lab, not to a military prison, not anywhere that would treat the Vrex as a thing to study or a threat to contain. They had survived together. They would face what came next together. Nova moved beside him. Daniel felt the familiar pressure of the creature's head against his shoulder. He reached up and touched the smooth armor. He felt the slight vibration of Nova's purring growl. "Whatever happens, we face it together, okay?" Nova's response was a complex series of clicks and rumbles that Daniel had learned meant agreement. Or maybe it was trust. With Nova, they seemed to be the same thing. The communication device made noise again. "Carter, this is Wellington. We are starting our approach. Get ready for rescue. Warning, we have multiple enemies moving toward your position. Time is short. Daniel grabbed the speaker. Understood, Wellington. But I need you to know something. I'm not alone down here. I have a companion. A Vrex, and it is coming with me. Silence stretched across the channel. Then Captain Monroe's voice returned. Careful and measured. Carter, confirm. You have a Vrex with you? Yes, the creature saved my life. We have formed a bond. I will not leave it behind. Another pause. Carter, Vrex are classified as hostile. We cannot bring an unsecured threat aboard a military ship. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then you better figure something out, Captain, because I am not leaving without Nova. He could hear quiet talking on the other end. Finally, Monroe spoke again. Stand by, Carter. We are working on a solution. Just hold your position. Daniel looked at Nova. The Vrex stood beside him. Its sensor holes scanned the canyon entrance where the distant sound of engines was starting to echo. More enemies, drawn by the signal or following the survivor who escaped. Either way, time was running out. One more fight. Then we are done with this place. Nova moved to stand in front of him. Body low and ready. Together they faced the canyon entrance as the sound grew louder. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The enemy raiders came in force. Their vehicles kicked up huge dust clouds as they entered the canyon. Daniel counted at least 8 fighters, maybe more hidden in the swirling sand. Nova tensed. A deep growl built in the creature's chest, but Daniel put a calming hand on its armored shoulder. Not yet, he said. The Wellington is coming. We just need to hold out. The lead vehicle stopped at the canyon entrance. Raiders got out with military precision, weapons raised, scanning for targets. Daniel and Nova pressed themselves into shadows behind a rock formation. Hidden from direct sight, the communication device made static noise. Carter, this is Wellington. We see the enemies. Rescue team is coming. 30 seconds. When you see our ship, move to the pickup point immediately. Understood. Daniel whispered into the speaker. The enemy advanced into the canyon in a standard search pattern. They knew someone was here. They knew their target was trapped. Daniel's heart pounded as he watched them approach. Plasma rifle ready. Nova remained still beside him. Every muscle tight. Then the sky tore open with the scream of engines. The Wellington's rescue shuttle dropped through the clouds like a falling star. Its hull was scarred from recent fighting, but its weapons worked perfectly. Plasma cannons lit up the canyon entrance. The enemy scattered for cover. Now, Daniel shouted. Go, go, go. He ran toward the pickup point. Nova kept pace beside him despite the injured leg. The shuttle came down fast. Its back door was already opening. Daniel could see people in Wellington uniforms inside. Weapons trained not on the enemy but on Nova. His stomach clenched, but there was no time to argue. Plasma fire from enemy positions forced them to weave between rocks. A shot hit close enough that Daniel felt the heat. Nova responded instantly. It turned and attacked the nearest raiders. Buying precious seconds, come on. Daniel screamed at the Vrex. We have to move. Nova broke off the attack and ran toward the shuttle. They reached the door together. Daniel climbed up first, then turned to help Nova. The Vrex stopped. Its sensor holes focused on the armed soldiers inside. Every instinct probably screamed danger. Daniel held out his hand. Trust me. Please. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Nova moved forward. It climbed into the shuttle. The door began closing right away. Plasma fire hit the hull as the pilot pulled them up with stomach-turning force. Inside the shuttle, silence ruled except for the roar of engines. 6 soldiers in full gear kept their weapons on Nova. The Vrex crouched low, clearly upset by the small space in the hostile stairs. Daniel moved between the Vrex and the soldiers. Stand down, he said firmly. This creature saved my life. It is not a threat. One of the soldiers shook his head. With respect, sir. That thing is classified hostile. We have orders to secure it. No, Daniel said. You will not. Nova's growl deepened. Its sensor holes opened wide. The Vrex could sense the tension. Probably understood these humans meant harm. Daniel kept one hand raised toward the soldiers. The other rested on Nova's armored head. A new voice came through the shuttle's speaker. Sergeant, this is Captain Monroe. Stand down. The Vrex stays free. Dr. Carter vouches for it. The sergeant waited, then slowly lowered his weapon. The other soldiers followed, though they kept their distance. Daniel felt some tension leave his shoulders. He turned to Nova. Kept contact, it is okay, he said softly. We are safe now. They will not hurt you. The shuttle connected with the Wellington 10 minutes later. Daniel had never been so grateful to feel the gravity of a proper ship. As the door opened, Captain Monroe herself stood waiting. 2 security officers flanked her. She was a small woman with gray hair and the look of someone who had spent decades in space. Her eyes widened slightly when Nova came out behind Daniel. But she did not reach for a weapon. "Dr. Carter," she said, holding out her hand. "Welcome aboard the Wellington. You have quite a story, I imagine." Daniel shook her hand. "Captain, thank you for the rescue. I know the Vrex makes things complicated." Monroe looked at Nova. Her face stayed neutral. "That is putting it mildly. Fleet Command will have strong opinions about this, but you are alive. And from reports that creature is part of Y. So we will sort the details later." She pointed down the hall. "Medical bay is this way. I assume you both need treatment." The medical bay was bigger than the entire sick bay on the Nightingale. 2 medics rushed forward when they saw Daniel, but stopped when Nova followed him inside. Daniel held up a hand. "Everyone, this is Nova. The Vrex is a patient and is under my care. You will treat it accordingly." Over the next hour, Daniel let himself be examined while keeping Nova close. His broken arm was properly set and treated with special tools to speed healing. The head injury was getting better but needed watching. Various cuts and bruises were listed and treated. Through it all, Nova stayed nearby, watching with clear curiosity. When it was Nova's turn, Daniel insisted on doing the check himself. The Vrex's injuries were healing well, but he wanted to be thorough. As he worked, he explained his findings to the Wellington's medical staff. They watched with interest. "Vrex bodies are incredible," he said, running his scanner over Nova's chest. "Backup organs. Fast healing. Armor that grows back. Medically speaking, they are wonders. They are also apex predators bred for war." One medic pointed out, "So are we," Daniel replied quietly. "Humans, I mean. We are hunters with enough intelligence to become the galaxy's best killers. But we are also capable of kindness and cooperation and choice. Why should Vrex be any different?" He placed his hand on Nova's shoulder, felt the familiar warmth. "This creature chose to protect me when it could have killed me. Chose to share when it could have taken. Chose partnership over hunting. That is not the behavior of a mindless weapon." The medical staff looked at each other but said nothing. Nova made that soft purring growl sound. Daniel smiled. Captain Monroe appeared in the doorway. "Carter, got a minute?" Daniel followed her to a small viewing deck. Nova trailed behind. The captain led them to a window overlooking the main bay. Through the glass, Daniel could see stars streaming past as the Wellington moved away from the planet. "I spoke with Fleet Command," Monroe said. "They want the Vrex sent to a research facility when we reach port." Daniel's hands clenched. "No, I figured you would say that." Monroe turned to face him. "Look, Carter, I have been doing this a long time. I have seen many things. Your Vrex there, it is clearly not following normal patterns for the species. Something happened between you two. It is called friendship," Daniel said, "or trust, or partnership. Nova is not a thing to be studied. It is a person who deserves respect." Monroe studied him, then nodded. "I told Fleet Command the same thing. More or less. They were not happy. But I pulled rank. You have a week to write a formal report. If you can prove the Vrex is intelligent and choosing this partnership willingly, Fleet will grant temporary asylum. You will be responsible for its actions. There will be limits and rules and regular checks, but Nova stays with you." Relief hit Daniel so hard he almost fell. "Thank you, Captain. Do not thank me yet. You are going to have to fight for this. Many people in Fleet see Vrex as weapons, period. You have to prove them wrong." She looked at Nova. "Think you can do it?" Daniel looked at Nova, at those sensor holes that somehow showed so much, at the powerful body that had protected him through countless dangers, at the creature who had chosen kindness over instinct. He put his hand on Nova's armored head, felt the steady warmth, the familiar vibration of that purring growl. "Yeah," he said, "I am up for it." Because Nova was not just a creature or a patient. Nova was his friend. And Daniel had learned something important on that harsh desert world. Friendship transcended species. It transcended expectations. It transcended the easy labels people used to define the universe. Sometimes an innocent medic and a killer alien were just two survivors who found each other in darkness. And sometimes that was enough to change everything. As the Wellington carried them toward human space, Daniel stood beside Nova at the window, watching the stars. They had come a long way from that crash site. They had further still to go. But whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them the same way they had faced everything else, together.